Hey folks, it's Pete Thorn. Welcome to my studio. I'm making this video at home. I'm making it here in my other studio. I'm all over the map. Please bear with me. This is my video for the Revival Drive, awesome sounding overdrive pedal from my good pals at Origin Effects from the UK. They are, of course, makers of the Slide Rig and Cali 76 compressors, just awesome sounding compressors. I'm a big fan of the stuff that they do, so I was excited to try the Revival Drive, and it does not disappoint. Now, look at all those controls. That's a lot of stuff, right? I was intimidated. I was like, oh my, what does all that do? So I went to their website, and Simon Keats, the designer of this unit, has created some terrific videos where he walks you through every single control and switch on this unit and explains what it's all for and exactly what it all does. And I would recommend going to watch those videos because they definitely clarify everything, and it'll really show you why there's so many options on the pedal. But I'll sum it up for you just in a second here. Let me just say that in this video there's no way I can cover all that stuff, and why would I want to anyway, because he's done it. So basically in this video what I wanted to do is dial in some cool tones through some different amps, more on that in just a second here, but dial in some cool tones, write a cool track. And the other thing that I wanted to do is they posed this, the Origin guys actually, to me as kind of a cool challenge. They said, why don't you plug it into a flat power amp and try and match the tone of a great Marshall amp with it. So I've got my 71 JMP 50 watt here, terrific sounding head, and I'm going to try as closely as I can to match the tone of that amplifier with this pedal plugged into a Matrix solid state power amp running into the same cabinet. So we'll see how close we can get. But essentially, on that note, that's a good branching off point. What is all of this stuff on this pedal? Well, basically what it all does is it's going to allow you to plug this pedal into just about any amplifier and get a great overdrive tone. So that's the goal with all these switches and stuff. It's basically to tune the pedal to whatever you're going to plug it into. So blackface Fender that's real bright, dark sounding AC30 on the normal channel, dark sounding Marshall on the bass channel, bright sounding Marshall on the lead side of a plexi style amp, or a flat power amp. You can plug this thing into just about anything and tune it for whatever you're going to plug it into. So the obvious advantages for that are, if you're going to a jam, you don't know what you're going to plug into, you can get your sound. If you're going to a studio and you don't know what kind of amps they're going to have for you to use, you can get your sound. If you do a bunch of fly dates, you're covered. Even insofar as maybe you want to get something like one of those new Duncan makes that Power Stage 170 amp, or Electro Harmonics makes those little Magnum 44 little solid state power amps. You can plug this into that and right into a guitar cabinet, and you'd have a really cool rig. So a really versatile drive pedal that allows you to use just about any source to plug it into. You've got basically two channels here, okay? Silicone rectifier side and valve rectifier side. This pedal is capable of more than just Marshall style drive sounds, but let's just talk Marshall for a second. You can think of that silicone rectifier side as being your 68 plexi. Sort of a little stiffer, a little tighter, and that kind of thing. This side, the valve rectifier side, a little more JTM 45. It's a little squishier, a little fatter sound. It can be a little more saturated when you really lay into it. And so you've got some nice options there. You can set them up for different tones and then foot switch between them. So that's really nice. Some of the other great controls on the pedal here, really cool stuff. The ghost control, okay? That allows you to blend in a ghost note effect. So ghost notes were really common on old Marshall amps, for example. Basically, I don't really understand how or why they happen, but as you moved up the neck, like on the B and G strings, sometimes you would hear this other sort of lower note happening underneath the note you were playing, and people started calling them ghost notes. And this pedal allows you to mix in that effect to just about any level, and it really is cool. It's like Simon Keats, in one of the videos that he made, he said, if you didn't have it, you'd really miss it. And he's like, oh, how would I live without that if I didn't have it? And you realize it when you blend in the control, just how cool it is. It's creating this little weird little undertone that you can blend in at any level, and it does add a lot to the character of the guitar sound. So that's a really nice feature. There's also a blend control here that lets you blend in some clean signal, so you can get, if you got a cool sounding clean amp and you want some of that clean punch, you can just blend in the clean at whatever level you want. Now, there's an optional foot switch you can get here that you can plug into this guy. It's got this blend override on it here, and so let's say you got the blend mixed in about halfway or something like that. You can kick this on and just go to the full drive sound if you want to. The other switch on the optional foot switch here is a mid engage, okay? So I might as well explain that now. There's a mid-range circuit in here that lets you boost mids if you want. It doesn't really add gain, but it allows you to add some mid-range to the signal, and it's going to allow you to poke through a little bit more if you want to do that, and that is foot switchable. So very cool. You've also got a really unique control here for negative feedback and presence. Okay, so it's labeled more and presence, and basically when this control is at the center detent, Simon explained in one of his videos that it's kind of like 68 plexi style presence, and as you turn it up, you're adding presence to the signal. If you go the other way with it, what happens is it's like taking negative feedback away from the amplifier. So this gets into some geeky stuff, but basically what negative feedback is amp designers add it to amplifiers to kind of stabilize the power section, and it also has the effect of kind of taming the amp a little bit. Okay, so when the control's in the middle or just a little bit to the left, you've got kind of like normal amount of, healthy amount of negative feedback going on. As you turn that up, what happens is the negative feedback gets less and less, and then the amp becomes more like an AC30. They had no negative feedback, and the amp was just kind of wide open all the time with no negative feedback mixed back into the signal. And what happens is it actually makes your sound get a little bit more sort of open and bold and a little bit dirtier sounding. So as you turn that negative feedback control up a little bit more towards noon, you're going to notice it seems like maybe the gain goes down a little bit, the amp tames a little bit, it's not so wild, and also it's a little bit more dynamic and sensitive to things like pick attack and the volume control on your guitar. So you can experiment with that, using it as both a presence control and as a negative feedback control, and just see what you like better. So ton of sounds. I don't know, let's get to it. Let's hear some sound examples. It is the Revival Drive from Origin Effects. So for the track at the beginning of the video, I used 3 different amplifiers, and I tuned in the Revival Drive to each different amp to get a great drive sound. Now, they were very different amplifiers. I used my Sir Bella, which is kind of an American style clean. It's got a bright switch on it. I had the bright in the middle position. It's a 3-way bright switch. I also used my Sir PT100 on channel 1, the clean channel, also an American style clean. I dialed in some different sounds, both using the bright switch in the amp on and off, and it's pretty radically different whether it's on or off. And I also use my divided by 13 RSA 31, which is like a AC30 top boost style circuit. So 3 very different amplifiers. I'm going to detail which amp was used for each part here, and I'll show the settings on the Revival Drive that I used to get a cool overdrive sound with each amplifier. So I used 2 amps for the rhythm guitars in the song at the beginning of the video, the Sir Bella, decidedly American sounding, and the divided by 13 RSA 31, way more of an AC 30 type of thing. And I just dialed them both in by ear, and I ended up dialing in completely different settings on the pedal in order to get a really cool, usable, sort of, you know, Marshall-esque style, plexi style drive going. So what I want to do now is just show you what the tone sounds like. I'm plugged into the Bella, but I want to show you what it sounds like playing the RSA 31 setting through the Bella, and then I'm going to dial back to get back where I was for the proper setting for the Bella, and I'll show you it's quite sophisticated, all the different things that you got to change. So I'm going to do that by just referencing a couple photos on my phone here. So okay, here's the way the sound sounds dialed for the RSA 31 but plugged into the Bella. Okay, so it doesn't sound too bad, but it's darker and kind of woolly for me. So I'm just going to turn it up a little bit here. Then the distortion character is just a little bit, it's just off. It's not quite right. So okay, changing the knobs just a little bit. I'm going to roll the lows back, roll the drive back just a little bit, and as well as the output. Changing the blend up to match my photograph here. Bright cut, I also had a different bright cap cut, I had a different position, and the high end shelf I had in a different position, and I had the EQ switch in EQ2 for the divided by 13, and for the Bella it was in EQ1, so we're going to switch that back, as well as the preamp switch I had in the 0 center detent position for the divided by 13. For the Bella it was in the Great Britain setting, I believe that is GB. So all that changed, and now also a couple of the switches on the bottom changed. Now I was using for the divided by amp, I was using the EQ on the bottom here, but that is switched out for the setting that I used for the Bella. So only I do believe the outside 2 switches work here on the base of the unit. So that is the cut frequency switch. I'm switching that up, as well as the shelf switch is supposed to be in the middle for the Bella. So we'll see how this sounds. I should be back to my Bella tone now. Okay, that sounds pretty darn good to me. So you can see that, I mean, the majority of my experience with this pedal so far has just been through experimentation. I watched the videos on the Origin site and learned a little bit about the controls and what they do and stuff like that, but especially with these controls on the bottom of the pedal, to be honest, I'm still a little bit fuzzy about it. It's a lot to kind of digest, and there's a little bit of a learning curve to this pedal, but just by using my ears I was able to get really good sounds on both amps, and I think that's what's important, is both through the Bella and through the divided by, just by turning the knobs and using the switches and stuff like that, and watching the videos on the Origin site, I was able to decipher basically what they did and dial in really great usable, well, beyond usable. I mean, this pedal I think does particularly the plexi thing. It's pretty stellar sounding. It really does sound like a great dirty amp, and it feels like one too. Delicious French roast. So one of the things that the Origin guys asked me to do in this video is see how close I could get the Revival drive to sound to a real Marshall amp. Now I have a 71 Marshall JMP here, and it's a great sounding amp. It's a 50 watt JMP. And so what I decided to do is just kind of experiment around with plugging the JMP into my 412 cabinet, which has 78 blackback, greenback style blackback G12M speakers in it. And it's a straight front cab, and I just thought, well, I'll mic it up, I'll plug in the Marshall, I'll get a real cool rock tone going, and then I'll take the Revival drive and plug it into a power amp. I have a Matrix, what is it? It's a GT 1500 here, and I'm just going to use one channel on the Matrix GT 1500, and I'm going to plug the Revival drive right into it, and I'm going to try and match the tone of the 71 Marshall with the Revival drive and see just how close I can get. So let's give it a shot. Okay, so I spent some time dialing in the Revival to the tone that I got with the Marshall, and I think I got it pretty damn close. I'm running through the silicon rectifier side right now. Here's the sound with no pedal, because I'm just so right now you're hearing power amp right into the cabinet. Plugging directly into a power amp. And here's the tone. Okay, now we got all that hiss because I'm running the Revival drive right into the front of the JMP, and I've moved the speaker cable into the JMP. So we will bypass the Revival drive, and now you're just going to hear the Ditto plugged into the JMP. Thanks for watching my video on the Revival drive from Origin Effects. Terrific overdrive pedal. I feel like calling it an overdrive pedal is almost a disservice. It's much more than that. It says here right on the front, unabridged amp tone, and it really is almost, you know, a guitar preamp more than an overdrive pedal. I hope that this was a nice sort of supplemental video to the ones that Simon made, where he thoroughly explains the pedal and all the different features. I hope you were able to hear some of the kind of real-world sounds I was able to get out of the pedal and found it interesting. You can check it out further on the Origin Effects website. It's on your screen there. Please hit subscribe if you haven't. Come back and see me for more videos real soon. I am Pete Thorn. Take care.